Chapter 2, Fundamental Data Types, Part 5. Input and output. It's helpful to be able to get information into our programs, and it's useful to get information out of our programs. So you might need to prompt the user for input and then save what they entered. We will be reading input from the keyboard. We're not going to worry right now about reading from files. That's beyond the scope of the class. And don't worry about the details. Just take it on faith. Unfortunately, in programming, or fortunately, I don't know, there are times when we have to take things on faith. Just do it. And that's frustrating for some new programmers. They want to understand why. And what was told to me when I was first learning how to program, you won't get it until you get it. And I found that nuts. And then when the light went on and all the pieces fell into place, I went, oh. So hopefully you too will get to that aha moment before you know it. There's a three-step process to get input from the user. Number one, we have to import the scanner class from its package. So at the top of your code, you'll have to put import java.util.scanner, and we'll see that in an example shortly. Two, you have to set up an object of the scanner class. So inside your main method, you'll have to put scanner in. Now in, you could call that anything there where it says scanner in, the in blue. You could call that Umpty France. It doesn't matter. It's just that you have to come up with a name for it, and in is handy. Equals new scanner, and then in parentheses, system.in, close parentheses, semicolon. So that sets up the scanner object. And number three, you use methods of the scanner object to get the input. So int bottles equals in, and that's same as the blue, that's the name we came up with, dot next int. Next int is the name of the method. We have to use that as it is. Or double price equals in dot next double. Those are two methods that we use to get either an integer or to get a double. So here's the syntax of the input statement. The scanner class allows you to read keyboard input from the user, and it's part of the Java API util package. So we'll talk about that Java API before the end of this chapter. Java classes are grouped into packages. So the package contains a bunch of related methods or routines that we can use. So java.util contains a lot of utilities that we use, like getting input. We use the import statement to say, hey, we want to include this stuff in this program. We don't include everything in every program because it's kind of like bringing your camping gear to school. You're not camping at school, so leave that stuff at home and only bring it when you're going camping. The same is true with stuff like scanner. We aren't getting input in every program, so there are times when we won't want to import it. We only import it when we need it. And we create the scanner object, and we do that in our main method. And then we have a prompt in the console window where we say, hey, enter this number. Otherwise, our user won't know what to enter, and the prompt will just be flashing there waiting for their input, but the user won't know what to do. So we use system.print, please enter the number of bottles. The slide says don't use println here, but you can if you want to. And then we define a variable where we hold the input value. Int bottles equals in.nextInt. The program waits until the user types an integer and presses the enter key. We can also format output. We've seen previously how we use system.print or println for output. Now we're going to take a look at printf. F means formatted. So let's say we want our output to say price per liter 1.22 instead of 1.21997. We would use system.printf, and then in double quotes we have our formatted string. So double quote %, dot to f, close double quote, comma, price. So whatever is in the variable price, it's going to format according to that format string. The % indicates, hey, heads up, this is a format string. And dot to means we need two decimal places, and the f means it's a floating point number. So in system.printf, double quote, %10 dot to f, close quote, comma, price, we're going to print that formatted price with two decimal places in a field that's 10 spaces wide. So the 10.2 means 10 total spaces with two places after a decimal place of a floating point number. And %10.2f is called a format specifier. The different format specifier types, we can have %d. D stands for integer. I'm not sure why. %5d means that we will print an integer with 5 spaces. Quantity colon %5d means we'll print the word quantity first, followed by 5 spaces for that integer, whatever we want to store, or the 24. %f means we're printing a floating point number. %.2f means that we are printing a floating point number with 2 decimal places. %7.2f means we're printing a floating point number in a total field width of 7 with 2 decimal places. %s means we're printing a string. We'll talk about strings shortly. And so on. You can check that all out for yourself. Look at the %n though, last line there for hello world. Hello %n world %n. %n means new line, so it's the same as if we press the enter key right there between hello and world and then after world. You need to include the format specifier inside double quotes, and you can put text inside the double quotes as well, as seen in the last example on this slide. So here's some more formatted examples. If we say system.out.printf double quote %-10s, it will left justify in that field of 10. If we leave off the minus, it will right justify in that field. And notice in the last example, we're using 2 different format strings. %-10s, we're printing a string left justified in 10 spaces. %10.2f, we're printing a floating point number right justified with 2 decimal places within that field of 10. Here is an example. You can check this out from your book, Section 3, Volume 2.java. You can also find in the Student Companion, you can also find all of these Java files. So you might want to check that out and see if you can get it running. This provides an example of comments, provides an example of our main method using a scanner. Notice the import statement up at the top, getting input from the user, and oops, this one didn't show up, but you can get it out of the book or out of the Student Companion. And then here's our last slide here, where we do our math at line 25. Double pack volume equals can volume times cans per pack, and then double price per ounce equals pack price divided by pack volume, and then we're printing that out in formatted output. Finally, let's take a look at the API documentation. API is our application programming interface. This is all of the stuff that's already been written for us that we can use. You can Google Java API documentation and you'll wind up at the Oracle website, and it's all formatted very similarly. That Java doc we talked about before that I said, oh, you don't have to worry about the Java doc comments, that is what generates this type of documentation. So for some of the classes, we'll go into more detail about that. For others, you don't have to worry. I just wanted to tell you that all of this documentation bears a similarity to each other, and it's all created using JavaDoc. So the packages are on the left, the classes are on the right, and the methods are listed below the classes. So these are methods that belong to, in this case, the scanner class.